More than 65 years, the United States has celebrated and recognized Veterans Day, and even the idea of Armistice Day dates back more than 100 years to November 11th of 1918, which marked the cease of one of the most destructive wars in history, World War I. So with this in mind, we would like to ask everyone to join us virtually by observing a moment of silence. Thank you, everyone. So I'd like to take this time to introduce our keynote speaker. Brigadier General Vincent E. Buggs, retired last assignment, was the Deputy Commanding General of U.S. Army North, 5th Army, and Director, Army Reserve Engagement Cell, U.S. Army North. B.G. Buggs was commissioned in 1990 after graduating from Georgia Southern University in Statesboro, Georgia, with a Bachelor's of Arts in History and a minor in German. He also holds a master's degree in global history from American Military University and is a graduate of the U.S. Air Force Air War College, where he earned a master's degree in strategic studies. He has served in a variety of command and staff positions as a logistics officer in Germany, Florida, Georgia, Wisconsin, Arkansas, Virginia, Florida, and Washington. His joint assignments include service as a plans officer for Multinational Corps Iraq, a logistical plans officer for U.S. Central Command, and as the CENTCOM liaison officer to U.S. Africa Command and U.S. European Command. He deployed twice in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. His last command was commander of the 364th Expeditionary Sustainment Command in Marysville, Washington, where the command won the prestigious Falcon Award for being #1. He is currently a lecturer at Georgia Southern University, teaching U.S. history, as well as intermediate teacher at Newsom High School, where he teaches advanced placement U.S. history. B.G. Buggs is also the CEO of Embrace the Power and Power Pony Express Sports. Remember that during the presentation, you're welcome to use the chat box to send us any question in advance of our Q&A session. Without further ado, may I present to some and introduce to others, Brigadier General Vincent E. Buggs. Welcome.
Well, hey, I appreciate everyone inviting me today to speak. And Valor, this is a great opportunity to talk. Allison and everyone that's on the, I want to thank Mr. Cage, I want to thank Mr. Campion, and especially the spouses and family members that are part of this program that support the reserves, the Guard, and soldiers deployed, because we still have soldiers in harm's way, and Marines, the Coast Guard, and all the services. So let's never forget the Air Force and the people that have set the standard prior to us coming into service, and the family members that have made so many sacrifices. And that is one key point I want to touch on real quick. But here's the deal: as a senior leader and a humble servant of the nation, it is important to always remember that leadership doesn't start with education. It starts with your foundation of where you grew up and the people you're around. Now, I'm from Bossier City, Louisiana, so I talk fast and I have a funny accent, so bear with me, because I grew up in Germany most of my life after leaving Louisiana. But to understand something is that the military is a unique community. It's more than just people serving and getting out. If you serve 2 years, 1 year, if you served 1 day, if you served 30 years like me, you have made a difference, because you did something the 1% of the nation doesn't want to do. You decided to serve in the military and make a difference. If you raise your hand, or you're a family member and you've had family members going to harm's way, or family members that have served, kudos to you, because that's what we're all about. And that's the importance of a special community that everyone is not a member of. So I want to say thank you to all the veterans out there, and all the spouses, and all the children that are brats like myself, military brats, that give so much. But today I was brought on to talk about leadership and diversity. So the first point I want to bring up is talk about leadership. Leadership is a craft, it is an art, and it's the things that we learn. I'm hoping I'm on. Does everybody see me?
Yes, I just
Okay.
wanted the low
All right.
battery.
Okay. All right. So leadership is a foundation that starts as as a student, as a child, when you're getting your foundation from your parents. And I tell everyone all the time is that leadership is not always about what school you went to or who you hang out with or any of those things. It is your foundation of the moral fiber that your parents give you. So which I start out with my thing called the BPR. Be politically real with yourself. It is important that in everything we do that we need to be politically real with ourselves and who we are. And 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 I'm telling you, that is probably the hardest thing is to look in the mirror. And I'm going to challenge every veteran out there right now to look in the mirror and see, are you giving 100% of yourself to the company or to the family and everything you do every day? Are you being politically real with yourself and that you are living up to that moral code and standard? I think I may have an issue here. 1 second. I don't know what's going on. It seems like technical Monday for everybody. So if I cut off, let me know, but I shouldn't. It sounds like I hear a beeping noise. All right. Welcome to the new normal of virtual conferences. All right. But getting back to it, you got to be politically real with yourself and understanding where you stand within the foundation you work in, the environment you work. You have a responsibility as an individual to make sure that you're bringing quality to the table, and not quality as in getting the bottom line of the company where it needs to be. Quality means that you're bringing quality every day, that you are mentoring, coaching, and teaching those around you and those within your preview. And it doesn't mean they have to work directly for you. They could work in another section. But I always tell people, if you really want to shape an organization, then you need to be approachable. Okay, you got me? All right. You guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. It muted itself. Oh, I'm all good. All right. In any company or organization, you have to be approachable and you have to be humble. I constantly have this discussion with junior officers and junior NCOs is that if you're going to make a company or an organization be successful, you have to be able to be approachable and be humble. I will tell you the hardest part of any leader or any human being is doing a self-reflection or taking feedback from other people. And I truly believe in being politically real with yourself and who you are, and knowing your shortfalls will help you be a better leader. But it goes further than that. It goes back to when you look at your company, do you understand the environment of the company you work for? Do you understand the environment of those around you and what's going on? So often we have leaders that don't even know what's happening to the next person next to them in their organization or in their section, which is worse. To be better, we have to make sure we're shaping what is going on around us, but we need to make sure that we're approachable to the point you understand what's the impact on the people who work with you. How many people don't know that somebody's having a child? How many people don't know somebody became a grandparent because they said, well, nobody told me? No, what needs to happen is that we need to do what I call walk around management, which means you have to be able to get out of your office or virtually go tap into everybody at some point and just see, hey, how are you doing? We are living in stressful times with COVID, but before COVID, we were still having issues with suicide rates and a whole bunch of other issues within workplace. I mean, we had a lot of things that I don't want to discuss in this forum, but we have people attacking their own people that work with them. And I'm going to tell you, that's a fundamental societal problem, but it also goes back to leadership of making people feel part of the team. See, confirmation bias is a terrible element that can hit any organization. And what is confirmation bias? Is when everybody believes, sees, and acts the same way. We need to make sure that we have opinions from everyone that brings it to the table, which I mean, I kind of call that being able to talk skillfully to understand what everybody's perspective is and how they support the organization. The thing is that the lowest ranking person can bring value if we open our apertures. And that doesn't matter what your rank is. It doesn't matter your position. One thing is you cannot wear your position. As Colin Powell said, do not wear your ego or your position or your rank. Wear the ability to listen, understand, and do the best you can for the organization. And the next point I want to touch on is what I call MSD, mission, strategy, destination. The mission of any human being is to be the best human being you possibly can by giving other people opportunities. And that means opening the aperture so anyone will have the ability to chase their dreams. You know, I say all the time, you got to begin with the end in mind, a very Franklin Covey comment, but there's a lot of truth to that. And the only way is that there is no one that is successful without someone opening a door for them. It doesn't matter your gender, your race. Someone has to open a door and allow someone to walk through that door to have opportunity. As a leader or as a subordinate, we should always be trying to open doors and make sure that people excel at their abilities. And then if they're not excelling, then we need to have that honest discussion with them and make sure that we're putting them in conditions where they can do better and then grow. And so they want to be a part of the team. So often I've seen teams let good people go because they didn't want to listen to their perspective. We have to change that rhetoric. I am telling you, in today's age, there's a lot of stress. Working from home, trying to manage your student athletes and your children at home, doing homework. There are so many different parameters. And then you have husbands and wives or spouses, significant others, partners all working together from the same location now. So everybody's kind of on top of each other. It is a different dynamic. But here's the deal. If you're politically real with yourself and you understand who you are and you understand that the things that you have to adjust within yourself, anything will work itself out. But understanding your inner foundation of who you are makes a big difference. I tell people all the time that you know, come to work for me, because I mean, everybody always goes, I have a story. Well, you know, I have the story. I tell my soldiers all the time, 2.17. 2.17. I say it all the time, and they go, what, you know, General Bugs, what is 2.17? I said, 2.17 is the greatest number of my life. I said, because when I grew up, I struggled in school, and they didn't have all the special things they have now. You either passed the person just to move them on, and that just was the thing that happened to me. So when I got to college, I ended up taking some classes that were the wrong classes. I took some advice, bad advice, and I took the wrong classes. At one point, I was struggling to get where I needed to be, and I ended up with a 2.17 grade point average to graduate. But it was the greatest success of my life, because the problem was that everybody was looking at the GPA, but they didn't see the journey of the person and the struggle of the person to get there. They didn't understand that, you know, I fundamentally had some struggles with grammar. I had some struggles with some math, had some struggles. No one saw the journey, because once I got all my master's degrees and all these other accolades, no one ever saw the struggle. We all go through those struggles, and everybody has a story to get where they need to be. And I tell everyone is that at some point, you have to look at your struggle, shape that struggle to make that journey go forward. And it applies in life across the board, not just how much money you can make or anything. It goes across life, and how you approach people, how you organize your life, and how you shape the business that you work in. I tell everyone, everybody has value. The Army family, which is I know very well, and the Air Force family, because my dad was Air Force, I know very well. But this is what I saw. My grandfather fought in World War II. When he came back to rural Mississippi, he was an educator during the worst times possible, because he was trying to teach people how to read or write during Jim Crow laws. I saw my father fight in Vietnam in the late 70s, late 60s, early 70s. I saw his struggles when he came back, when people didn't appreciate his efforts and what he did in Vietnam. And he stayed in 20 years. You know, I look at everything after the Gulf War, when the Gulf War started, and I look at everything when I came back, and all the people that say thank you for your service. There's always been somebody that's been a pioneer or journeyman that did not have those same privileges, and their sacrifice and every other veteran's sacrifice gave me the opportunity for people to pat me on my back, changing the rhetoric. Well, each and every one of you that carries that term veteran or still serving, or military spouse, you earned your seat at the table. If anyone ever tells you that you didn't earn your seat at the table, they are dead wrong. You have sacrificed more than most people. You have given up so much of your life in service of this nation. And right, I realize that we have some turbulence right now, and hopefully we will reshape that. But that turbulence is called democracy. And it's been there since Thomas Jefferson was vice president and Adams was president, and one was a Federalist and an anti-Federalist. That's that historian coming out. You know, it has always been friction points. But in the end, there's one true thing. We are one nation. And we serve the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, support the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. We should never forget that. It is the foundation of the next generation that we have to shape. It is our duty as leaders, and it doesn't matter if you're working in corporate America or you're working as a school teacher or you're a police officer or a firefighter. We owe our obligation to the communities that we live in to make sure the next generation understands citizenship, patriotism, and that they provide community service for those that are getting elderly and for the next generation. That's our obligation as veterans. I used to ask my grandfather all the time, I said, why did you become a principal and a school teacher? He said, selfless service doesn't stop because I got out of the military. He goes, that's where I learned selfless service. And I never forgot that. Always stand for something or fall for something, for nothing, Vince, is what he used to tell me all the time. He says, you have to be a positive impact to the community that you live in. That is your sole duty as a human being. So I always challenge people when they're at the office and organizations, and I ask you, when was the last time, and I throw it out there to anybody on this VTC, when was the last time you did a self-assessment? And you don't have to get feedback from anybody, but a self-assessment of, are you truly giving the organization you work in 110% of yourself of what it needs to do to be successful? Then you have to ask yourself, are you giving yourself 110% of yourself on things that you need to be successful as a human being, which means taking vacations, doing what you need to do, or putting time where you've neglected. During COVID, I think a lot of people are doing a lot of reflection, but I also think people are learning that they have to be more resilient because this is a resilient time. You know, Winston Churchill once said, diversity is the one true thing we all have in common. You know, we got to celebrate it every day. But the thing is, you have to embrace it every day and you have to understand it. And no organization can be shaped or move forward without some common knowledge, some common knowledge of diversity within the ranks of, and that means in the boardroom all the way down to the smallest job. You know, I hear the struggles, you know, that we need to have more women in the boardroom. We need to have more of this in the boardroom. We need to have that. My question is, when are we going to just say the key words? We need to have quality people. And we have to have a process that allows us to get to where we have quality people. I used to tell my team all the time at my division, I said, I want my division to be a reflection, my headquarters to be a reflection of our society. I said, however, I still need the best person for the job. I said, so make sure as we shape things in the division, we shape them so that we have the best person to do the job. And I did, and my staff did that. And it allowed us to excel at levels that most people couldn't excel at. And people would ask me, they said, well, how'd you pull that off? It wasn't that I pulled it off. I shut up and I sat down and I listened to privates in my organization and said, what's going wrong? What do I need to fix? And I'll say that again. I was a general. I was asking privates because I reverted back to Napoleon's private. The private will tell you everything you don't want to hear. But it's the greatest thing that you can ever do. And then the spouses, you know, FRG, I'd have them come in. What do we need to do? What do I need to do to make it like you're part of the team? You know, for a lot of leaders, we say we don't have a lot of time. We don't have time to do that. Really? Then we have to make time. Doesn't matter if it's in the Army or in any civilian organization. And what you got is standing up valor. That's a step in the right direction. That is that next level, and how you grow this and how it comes out. That's a beautiful thing. But I leave you with this one quick story, and I hope it has an impact on you. Many years ago, I met this specialist named Jake DeRico, and he worked in Fort Carson. He was in the infantry unit, and Jake was a unique young man. So his unit went down to JRTC, down at Fort Polk, Louisiana, and they took on the enemy in the OP4. I'm trying to say that so everybody kind of understands. And they got beat pretty bad. They got beat really bad. Well, Jake took it really personal. He took it really personal after that happened. So when he came back to the unit the next year, they started training to get ready to go to JRTC. The first sergeant would say, all right, if there's anybody in the formation that believes we haven't trained enough, raise your hand. Jake would raise his hand. First sergeant would shake his head. He said, okay, we're going to train another hour because Mr. DeRico says we haven't trained long enough. So the next day it happened again. The next day it happened again. Now we're all the way to Friday now. Now Friday, everybody's ready to get out. And the first sergeant goes, is there anybody here that thinks we haven't trained hard enough? Do we need to keep training? Well, DeRico raises his hand. At this point, Private DeRico is getting lambasted and everybody's yelling at him. And the first sergeant says, guess what? You know what? You're going to work on Saturday. I'm going to punish everybody for Saturday. So they go to Saturday and they're training, and it's hot in Colorado during that time. And finally, the first sergeant, after he thinks he's smoked the whole unit and everybody's tired, he goes, is there anybody here that thinks we need to go another hour? And Jake raised his hand. Finally, confirmation bias kicked in. The whole unit lost their minds, and everybody wanted to jump on little Private DeRico. And finally, an E7 asked him, what is your issue? What is your problem? And Mr. DeRico turns around, Jake turns around and says, we lost. We lost a fight we could win because we weren't ready. He said, the thing is, when I was in martial arts, I lost my first year in the tournament in Wisconsin. So he said a person walked up to him and says, you're the best martial artist here. However, you're the most technical martial artist, but you're not feeling what you need to do. He said, you need to go home and train for another year, Jake. He says, and by the time you come back next year, if you feel what you're able to do, you'll be able to beat anybody in here. Jake won the tournament the next year after that, and he realized one thing, that when things become second nature, things become easy. And he explained that to his unit. And after that, no one ever complained again about training. But the point of the story is not about the training piece. The point is that the juniorest person in the formation changed the unit's ability to be better. And then when they went to JRTC, they ended up just outdoing the OP4 bad. I mean, just crushing the OP4 and the enemy. But the point is that anyone can change an organization if people are willing to listen. At the beginning, they weren't willing to listen to what Jake had to say. And I said specialist, DeRico, because I had the unfortunate situation of handing his mother his flag years later after at Fort Carson. So no matter what small part that Jake played while he was on the planet and changed so many things, the impact he made was catastrophic. It was unbelievable as a private. So each and every one of you have that Jake DeRico in you. It's that at some point you got to use it, and some of us have forgotten it. And as I always tell everybody, we all have a journey and all have a mission. It's just if we choose to use it. Nelson Mandela kind of said it many years ago, you can't exercise your rights unless you know your rights. So you need to make sure that you understand your environment and the rights you have to be able to make a difference in the world. And with that, I will turn it back over to the co-chair of the conference. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, General Buggs, for sharing your story, sharing your perspective today. I think we can all attest that being in the military means being able to overcome obstacles in the moment. So we had to overcome some technical obstacles today. So we appreciate everybody's patience. But thank you so much for sharing your story today. And at this point, we'd really like to open it up now to a Q&A forum. So please, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box now. But I will start with the first question we have for you, General Buggs, and that is, what does Veterans Day mean to you?
Wow, considering I'm a military brat and seeing my grandfather and everyone, and you know, my dad's buried at Fort Sam. I mean, Veterans Day is about the biggest sacrifice that a human being can be underpaid and give so much. And I say that lightly, but kind of jokingly, but lightly, because enlisted soldiers don't get paid a lot, and yet they are on hundreds of walls with Medal of Honor. And they are 19, 18, and some 17-year-olds. And so Veterans Day to me is the ultimate ability of a human being to do something asking nobody for nothing. And you know, veterans are a rare breed. They are a rare breed. And it means everything to me, not because I've served, it's because I now truly appreciate more, even though my dad and grandfather served, my sister and my brother, but I truly appreciate more the sacrifice I've seen my wife make, my mother make during the time my dad was in Vietnam, my grandmother. And veterans are a unique group of people. And, you know, to honor them is you're asking for people that don't ask for a lot, but give so much. That's what it means to me. They're the heroes that don't wear capes, man. That's how I see them.
Awesome. That was a good first question, Allison, to start us off. So another question we had come in is General Bugs. What has been one of your most challenging problems or solutions that you faced as you've progressed through the ranks, and how did you soar through it?
Wow, we're talking about resiliency. I would be dishonest if I said I didn't deal with racism, which I did. I would not be truthful if I said I didn't deal with confirmation bias, which are two different things. Those were the biggest challenges of trying to navigate when people didn't think you had the capability to do something. I caveat not giving you the opportunity to do something. As any human being on the planet, the one thing is, if you get a position, we all aspire to try to give our best. But what most people ask for, be it woman, man, or whatever context that we got to be politically correct these days, we need to make sure that we give that individual a fair opportunity, which means making sure that it's a fair playing field. It doesn't matter who the individual is. And I think often that we don't do that very well at times. And the worst thing to hear in an organization, or even in the Army, hear it a lot, is that, you know, the last person was so good. But then a question I would always ask is that person held to the same standard of the previous person? And so we shouldn't have different expectations when we give people opportunity. I think those opportunities have to be equal across the board. And I hope that answers your question, but those are the challenges that I faced, was just fighting just to have an equal footing, to be able to just do the job to my best ability. Okay.
Wow, that's awesome. Thank you, General Bugs, for sharing that. Colleen, I don't know where the question came from, but I love the part where they asked how did he soar through it. Just thinking about the topics of today. General Bugs, one of the questions that I had, even on a personal level, is, as a leader, how has employer support impacted or enabled your soldiers to better serve in that dual role of citizen and soldier?
Oh, the 2 times a citizen question. I think to be honest with you, the senior leader has to respect the fact that people have 2 jobs. Well, 3 jobs. They have family, they have their civilian job, and they have their military job. And they need to make sure that they're trying to help people balance that situation. The employers, I think it's ESG, I don't want to get the acronym wrong, but they've been really great in helping people navigate that. But here's the thing I always say, is if we're going down that road, we've already went down the wrong road, because we should be setting conditions ahead of time, understanding what the soldier needs, or the Marine, or whoever's on the reserves or guard side needs to be successful at both jobs. And then sometimes I think we lose sight of that because we get stuck on the bottom line, or, you know, if they have a family issue. And here's the thing, is I tell people all the time, you don't know who's going to get sick in your family. in this times is really more, evident now, but you don't know who's going to get sick in your family. And as you get older, like myself, your mother gets older, you have other obligations. And as an employer, you have to step back and understand that, but also understand that when people are serving the country, that you need to make opportunities for them. So often I hear someone say that's retired. Well, I know he's got to go do duty, but he shouldn't. But you know what? You've already done your time and you didn't have an issue, but yet we make an issue for someone now that has to go through the system. So we really have to balance that from the civilian military side. So, I always tell people, make sure you keep things in perspective and make sure you walk in someone else's shoes before you judge them. All right.
Thank you for that, General Buggs. Our next question we have for you is, what is one thing you want to be a part of your legacy of service?
Wow. I think the biggest thing that I want to leave is, if anybody knows me, is humble servant, taking care of soldiers or family members, just taking care of anybody that fell in my step, because I was joint several times. And then just making sure the legacy that I leave is that I leave the impression that I was there for the team as opposed to there for myself. And I think as any senior leader, that is a big piece of the pie, is to make sure, hold on one second. I guess my daughter decided to print. Then she goes, I'm sorry, Dad. All right. So, and the biggest piece of the legacy that I wanted to leave was just making sure that everybody understood I was a team player and that the most junior person could speak to me when they wanted to speak. Over.
So I think on the junior person being able to speak whenever they want to speak, I think at Collaborative we've seen that even happening internally here. I think our leadership team is very accessible. I'm thinking back to Sean Campion, who's also he's the executive sponsor for VALOR, and he's also a service member, and he's actually out today with his service commitment. So I think, just knowing the inner workings of Collaborative, we've had that same type of flexibility, and it's been super important to creating a partnership, or what I like to call Collabi-ship internally. So thank you for that. I think Colleen.
Yeah, we have another question here. How has diversity and inclusion impacted your ability to meet mission?
Wow, that's a great question, because I just had the greatest opportunity of having a female chief of staff who brought so much to my table as explaining things to me. One second. My daughter. All right, so it is she brought so much to the table, because there's things and the best way to put this is, she would give me a perspective that I didn't see, how things would impact the female soldiers in the formation. So when we were making policies, it's easy to make a policy, but she would come back and then the colonel would say, hey, sir, I think this and this will impact our readiness, this will impact that. And she ran a list of figuring out how many, be it male or female, single parents we had, how much time people were traveling to drill and back from drill, and how we would have to adjust those hours. So diversity, I'll be straight honest with you. Diversity on your staff, just not in gender or race. Diversity of opinions helps a leader really do a lot better if they're listening. And I will tell you this, that it helped our unit, because we would have never won the Falcon Award if we didn't take care of the people that work for us. And then, and making sure that they had a way to drill, and that they were, some people ended up being homeless. And I'll give a great example. We had a soldier that ended up being homeless due to whatever fault of the situation. But we found out because of our open door policy, and someone told her, and it was a full court press to help him get a job. And so it turned him on to this book I put on my reading list by Christine Napsa, How to Interview. And I told him one day when he came in my office, is that every day you go through life, you're going through an interview. But the thing is that you're part of this 364 team, and you being homeless is not one of the things that I want to see in my formation. So he ended up getting a job and doing, he's doing great now. But those are the things that you won't find out if you isolate yourself from the population, or isolate yourself with confirmation bias. So diversity brings a lot to the table. And that's my take on that piece.
Wonderful. So we actually had a question just come in from one of our senior application developers, Austin Pickard. He asked a question I think is pretty cool. So he wants to know, in your whole 30 years of service, what would you say would be one of your best, funniest, or most memorable memories?
Okay, non-attribution. I know it's being recorded, but I didn't even tell this story. All right, so I'm just going to give the generalizations to make his day. So we're in Iraq, and I was told by a colonel, Bugs, when I leave the base, there will be no parties, no nothing. Hard rule. It's gonna you keep everything dressed right, dressed. Saluted the flag, Roger that, sir. So I'm standing around like 2 hours later, and the Marines come by and they go, "Hey, sir, I have a band, and they want to just, you got trailers. We like to just sit on one of your trailers and warm up and, and do a jam session. Nobody around. We just want to, just jam out a little bit because, we're just going to let off some steam." Unknown to me, I'm going, okay, no problem. So they plug in, they start jamming. Next thing I know, there's like 500, 600 people there at the jam session. And I'm standing there and I'm going, we're good. The colonel's gone to Baghdad. We don't have nothing to worry about. And there's a shadow over my back. And I turn around and the 6'4" colonel standing there. And he goes, "Bugs, what did I tell you?" And I just threw my hands up. I was like, can't win. So the next day I had to march in there to him and tell him, "Hey, sir, I'm sorry. It wasn't meant to be." But it was a great story because he literally looked at me and goes, why did you do it? And I said, "I was innocent as heck, sir. It just happened." He goes, "It's one of those things in life that just happened, Bugs." I was like, "It just happened." So he let me off the hook. But I would tell you, the moment I stood there and I saw that shadow, I already knew I was in trouble. So that's my best story I could give you.
All right, so we'll have to protect Austin internally in case he sees a 6'4", 6'2" shadow coming out from any place. So with this being said, I think Colleen is going to pop up the screen here. Sir, I can't thank you enough for sharing with us, partnering with us. I know we've had some time, our team, to get to know you, and of course you have partnered a long time with Sean Campion, who couldn't be with us today. So I wanted to just bring up one thing here about our mission moment. So a part of VALOR is that we wanted to make sure that we recognize not just people that are here, but also recognize people abroad and bring things in different contents to collaborative. So Colleen, if you could. We had the pleasure of working with one of our U.S. service members who is currently deployed in Afghanistan. So I'm going to have Colleen click over to the next slide and bring that up.
Okay, can you see it?
We can see it, yes.
Sorry, I couldn't tell on my end. I just figured one of you would tell me. You couldn't. You couldn't.
Yes, all right, perfect. Yes, we can see it. So our mission moment and highlight is Captain Mavado Long. He is a graduate of Meharry Medical College in Nashville, Tennessee. He is a actively serving U.S. Air Force service member. His focus is on internal medicine, and he's currently deployed in Afghanistan. During his deployment, he splits his time performing COVID-19 tests and working in an urgent care and inpatient ward where he cares for U.S. service members and allies. So huge shout out to Dr. Long. And as a part of that, you can go to the next slide. We were able to actually partner with a local school in St. Louis, Missouri. And we had Nance Elementary School, St. Louis, Missouri, Dr. Tyler Archer and educator Caleb Smith. And partnering with those kids, 145 kids wrote hand letters, pictures, and all sorts of things that we are shipping to Afghanistan today. So we're shipping them to Afghanistan, and they will be passed out in a COVID ward where Dr. Long will make sure that patients from both Air Force and Army and our allies are able to get this and experience Veterans Day, even though they may be dealing with something medically. So we're super excited about that. Last but not least, if we wanted to do one other highlight and kind of Collabi Spotlight.
Can I say something about
that? Yes.
I think I know about that firsthand. because I think I ran into some high school kids 30 years later, 18 years later that I had
Yes, yes.
I think Good Morning America. I tell him, hold on to those letters. You never know.
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, that is amazing to see. I've read through some of them, and I was on the line with Allison and Colleen this morning, and just digesting what the view of these kids are. These are first K through 4, and some of the letters, "Our land is free because of you," or one of, I think, Colleen's favorite ones was, "Hey Army people," or "Dear Army people." So I thought that was pretty amazing to have these kids come up with this content to share with our service members and allies. Last but not least, I just wanted to do a quick Collabi Spotlight before we wrap up. I don't know if you guys can see my cup. I don't know if the team has theirs. Colleen, I thought I saw yours earlier. But General Bucks, we were able to get you one of these phenomenal VALOR cups. We're going to be shipping it to you. But these were actually made by Shauna Harris, or Cargill now, recently married, who is a consultant here at Collaborative. She made these for us. She templated them for us, shipped them to us, and we're so grateful for that, Shauna. If you're listening, we appreciate it so much. And General Bucks, we have that coming out to you. So if we don't have any more questions, guys, Veterans Day is Wednesday. We will get this recording out and shared. We'll have some different content on LinkedIn as well as soon as that gets converted, and put the video, I think, on YouTube, on the Collabi YouTube. I think we kind of discussed that. So if you have other questions, last question, General Bucks just came in. How can people reach you? Where can they find you? They want to know where they can source you out at and have you come speak and connect. Right. I'm pretty sure you're on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, and right now I am launching a bunch of different stuff on being positive, but not just, motivational stuff. I am actually really aggressive on Twitter to try to change the narrative for, because there's so many people struggling with things. But I also do another thing called Embrace the Power, which is on LinkedIn, and then PowerPoint Express Sports. And so I'm on both. And if you tag me, hey, I'll write you. If you ask me, I speak at high schools and a lot of in different formats. And so hit me up on Twitter and my handle. And I sent you my book reading list, so you have that. You can push it out to everybody, because it's really good content for those books that I've read. And then on LinkedIn, I accept everybody. So if you write me and say, hey, I was at VALOR, could you, befriend me? I will befriend you. Because the thing is, I think is, and I'm going to go back to Steve Jobs, even though I have, he's a different kind of guy at times. But Steve Jobs said something about associative, is that when you take people that don't know each other and you bring them together, you can do great things. And so when he was able to put calligraphy and the digital space together, he ended up making the Mac computer. So I always take that example when it comes to collaborating with people, because I think often is we don't have information. And there's somebody that's right next to us that we don't talk to that has that information. So I always tell people all the time is the information's there. You just need to know who has the information for you to be able to aspire to what you need to do. So I will tell everyone on here, apply associative thinking when you have an opportunity. It's not because you're meeting a stranger or anything. It's because you may find out some information that you didn't have before, and it may help you excel at what you need to do. Fair enough, Lee?
That's fair enough, sir. Thank you. So, guys, the video will be out on the VALOR SharePoint in the DNI community. We will have General Buck's reading list out there as well. So if you want to check out what he likes to do in his spare time when he's not leading soldiers, you can check that out as well. And huge shout out to my counterparts, Colleen and Allison. I appreciate you guys so much, and thank you for everything you do. So
it makes you got this thing, man. I want to be clean.
I will. So, all right. Thanks everyone for joining and partnering with us today. Have a blessed day and happy Veterans Day. Goodbye.
You too, guys. Happy Veterans Day. Goodbye.
Bye.